Thank you for attending my presentation on stress management. I'm Cindy Bunde, a physician assistant from the Pocatello Free Clinic at Idaho State University. Let's start by discussing what stress is. Stress is a natural human response to changes in our environment or lives. It can be a positive or negative response. There are a variety of outcomes from stress, as well as a variety of reactions to it. So if I ask someone to think of causes of their stress, that's usually pretty easy to list several. The word cloud here shows some common causes of stress, ranging from health and job related to those associated with our relationships. The problem is sometimes we don't consciously think about all these causes, so I encourage you to do so. Before we address managing stress, it's helpful to understand the types of stress. Did you know that some of the types of stress are considered to be good or helpful? That is termed eustress. And I'll talk more on the next slide about how a little bit of stress can help our performance. Most of the stress we think about is the bad type, or called distress. That is not helpful, and it often causes us harmful effects like pain and suffering. Additionally, stresses can be acute or short term. These are just the types of things that stress us for a few hours or a couple of days, then go away. Chronic stress, which lasts longer term, also tends to have negative effects on humans. This image demonstrates something called the Yerkes-Dodson law, which shows that a little bit of stress is helpful to nudge us into motivation and optimum performance. It's like a deadline for an assignment or a bill to pay that encourages us to work. If there are no stressors ever, we might not be motivated to work or get things done. Unfortunately, some of those stress levels are higher, as we can see toward the right-hand side of this graph, getting into the orange and red colors. If stress levels are high, we can become fatigued, exhausted, and experience anger, anxiety, and even breakdowns. All stresses cause some changes in the hormones of our bodies. Some of the key substances released with stress are epinephrine, norepinephrine, which can have especially strong effects on our cardiovascular system, like heart blood vessels, and cortisol, the so-called stress hormone. In the short term, these substances enhance our response to stress. Increasing our heart rate if we're in urgent danger and need to run away is helpful. Our bodies can then rest, recover, and return to normal if the stress level rises and then drops. If there's never a relaxation phase, though, these hormones remain elevated. In the long term, cortisol especially can lead to high blood sugar, cognitive or thinking problems, loss of bone and muscle, increased abdominal fat, disrupted sleep, and higher rates of heart attacks, strokes, and depression. While it might seem obvious to identify stressors when we're sitting here thinking about stress, sometimes stress is a bit more disguised. You might be going about your normal day and find yourself with a variety of physical or mental symptoms without recognizing the cause. Sometimes I notice that my shoulders end up about around my ears. Uh, Some physical symptoms of stress include fatigue or exhaustion, headaches, dizziness, problems with digestion or nausea, sexual function problems, pains in the chest, joints, muscles. Additionally, stress can manifest with high heart rates, blood pressure, and frequent illness due to weakened immunity. Some mental health symptoms of stress can include insomnia, anxiety, or excess worry, irritability, and inability to enjoy things which you normally find joy. So now that we've learned a little bit about what stress is and how to recognize it, I'll spend the rest of the session on evidence-based ways to manage or reduce your stress. While we can't eliminate stress, some of these techniques will make your stress less severe, more tolerable. The two main categories of stress management are changing how you think and adopting stress reducing actions. Let's start with adjusting our thinking. Expressing gratitude is powerful. When we intentionally pause and focus on what we're grateful for, it gives stress less power over us. You can do this in your head or in a journal. It's best done daily, like every morning upon wakening or at bedtime. Altruism is an unselfish concern for others. Similar to gratitude, this shift in our thinking helps reduce stress. Maybe you find a way to smile and cheer up someone you see today. Maybe you call a relative or friend and focus on truly listening to them. Maybe you volunteer in some way to make the world better. Finding purpose is a related concept. It's easy to get caught up in the monotonous tasks of daily life, but how often do you think about what your role is in this life? Is it to be a good parent? Is it to help animals or advocate for victims? Seeking joy and humor are fun ways to reduce stress. When's the last time you played? If I asked you what you do for fun, do you have an answer? And for these last couple, just know that change happens whether you like it or not. I'm one that prefers things to stay the same. But if we can find ways to embrace change, we'll have less stress. And for the last item, in this category, I recommend you engage in self-compassion. Have you heard the phrase, we are our own worst enemy? Well, think about that self-talk going on in your brain that we all have. Is it supportive and kind? Or is it judgmental and harsh? Would you feel that way about someone you cared about? If not, you should adjust your thinking about yourself. Well, it takes time to adopt those changes, especially in the ways we think. So if you prefer to focus on actions, here's some things you can do that might reduce, that have been shown absolutely to reduce stress. Mindfulness practices and meditations have been shown in research studies to improve how people respond to stress. Breathing techniques are useful for stress reduction. The next 3 slides will go into a little more detail with each of those 3 practices. Additionally, spending time in nature reduces stress, especially if you're around trees, water, and or the sound of birds. You have been hearing about the other pillars of lifestyle medicine, and working on adequate sleep, nutrition, physical activity, and social connections will reduce stress too. Some people mistakenly look to substances such as alcohol or marijuana to escape stress. They feel like it relaxes them. Unfortunately, these do not reduce the stress, cause more disruption of the body's balance and hormones, and carry many risks. So let's delve deeper into those 3 practices, starting with mindfulness. Mindfulness, in its most basic definition, is an increased sense of awareness and being present. Most often, we are referring to increased awareness of things like our senses, like sound, touch, feel, smell, and even taste, and emotions. It's, if you think of the exact opposite of being on autopilot, or the opposite of focusing on the past or future, it's being present in that moment. It can be like petting a cat and enjoying that silky feel and warmth of their fur. It can be eating some cereal and enjoying that crunchy feeling in your mouth. It can be these little things that we really just are present in and experience. It can be having a conversation and recognizing you're feeling threatened and anxious and exploring those emotions. Might be feeling sad and leaning into that feeling, recognizing your sadness, acknowledging that it's normal and okay to feel sad, and also that emotions are temporary and will pass. Have you heard of doing a body scan? It's often recommended as a relaxation technique, and it's a form of mindfulness. You can think about your body parts moving from head to toe, starting with how does your head feel? What about your eyes? Are they tired? How can you relax them? Your neck, is it tight? Go into your arms and legs. How about your chest? Is your heart racing? Is your breathing comfortable and relaxed? If anything feels a little tight or painful or off, you would mindfully recognize it and consider it. Maybe your back's a little sore at the end of the day from work. What is your emotion about that? Here you could actually encompass a couple of these techniques together and potentially pair gratefulness for what you accomplished, even though your back is sore. There's so many ways to incorporate mindfulness into our daily life. It can be a pause to check our emotional state before or after a phone call. Can you think of one way that you could be more mindful today or tomorrow? Let's talk about meditation as a technique. There are many misconceptions about meditation. Some people think it's religious. Some think that that one has to be incredibly flexible and decked out in yoga wear, like the lady in this picture, to meditate. Again, in basic terms, meditation is a physical and mental practice targeted at improving focus and or clearing the mind. Meditation may overlap with mindfulness. As you can see, there are many types of meditation. The most common one people think of is a seated, quiet meditation like the image here, but there are dancing and walking meditations too. Excuse me, which actually are more effective for people with a history of trauma. There are many free and paid guided meditations available as apps or online videos. Meditation can seem daunting and is often recommended for 15 to 20 minutes. However, experts advise that starting with just a few minutes is best. You can sit in a comfortable position in a chair or on the floor. You don't have to have your hands or legs in any certain configuration. Sometimes a mantra, which is a brief focus phrase repeated over and over, is used. You might have one phrase for your inhale, one for your exhale, or only the exhale. It could be something like patience, one of the things I need to work on, or strength, or something else that's going to be your focus for that meditation in that day. Focus on your breathing and a mantra if you choose to use one. Try not to think about anything specific, but if the thoughts arise, which they inevitably do, just thank your brain for thinking so hard, but tell it to take a rest. Return to your breathing and your mantra. Do this for a minute or two, once or twice daily. Over time, increase the amount of time spent meditating. Initially, it will feel hard to just sit there. Over time, your brain and body will start looking forward to these sessions. And more remarkably, you are training your body on how to calmly respond to stress. Meditation can even help with the pain response. Again, as with mindfulness, it's important to avoid judgment, especially of yourself. If you have thoughts or emotions arise, just acknowledge them and keep breathing. And if you're considering meditation and have a history of trauma, consider talking to a professional first or try one of those movement meditations instead of sitting. The last stress reduction technique I will cover here is breathing techniques. There are a variety of them, but one of the easiest ones is what's called box breathing. In simple terms, box breathing includes an inhale, pause, exhale, pause, with 3 to 4 counts for each step. The image on the left shows how the breaths work and the benefits. With only 1 to 2 minutes of box breathing, the body learns to relax. The beauty of breathing techniques is that you can apply them anywhere, anytime. Some other variations include the 4-7-8, in which you inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, and exhale for a count of 8, then start over. This technique recommends you make the exhale twice as long as the inhale. So if you can't hold the 4, the 7, and the 8, you can shorten it just a little bit to fit. Other breathing techniques focus on breathing from your belly and feeling your abdomen as you breathe, or inhaling through your nose and out through pursed lips. There are others I haven't listed, but I like the box breathing technique because there's not much to memorize or think about. Just inhale, pause, exhale, pause, repeat. So to wrap up in discussing stress management, it's ideal if we could prevent the stress to begin with. Once you get better at recognizing things that cause you stress, you might think about ways that you could avoid that situation. Some stresses are unavoidable. However, for example, if you recognize a toxic relationship which causes you only stress and there's no joy or support there, you might minimize interactions with that individual. If you can't avoid the stress, plan how you might handle the situation. Will you do some box breathing before that job interview? Will you do some gratitudes or spend time outdoors after working an overnight shift that stresses you out? Those all help if you have a plan. So as you recognize stressors and apply these techniques, you'll begin to take control over the stressors in your life. So I would encourage you to think about something I've presented here and pick one or two and try it in the next week. We can delve deeper into the various techniques and I can answer questions. There are some resources available, and as I mentioned, things like Calm and Balance have both free and paid options. The selfcompassion.org is an excellent website to show yourself some care. YouTube has all kinds of meditations and various videos. Certainly, you can seek professional counseling and something called biofeedback, which I didn't go into here, but that's a professionally led practice of working to slow down breathing rate, heart rate, and get your physiologic response to stress to improve. Lastly, here's some references I used. Thank you so much for letting me share this presentation with you.